tape, which was widely covered and widely condemned as racist and just plain stupid. There was lots of news coverage about him again this week because it looks like his NBA team, the LA Clippers, now has a buyer. But my next guest says the spotlight on that kind of racism is misplaced, that it's a distraction from systemic injustices. His name is Ta-Nehisi, and he recently grabbed that spotlight and shined it on this, a cover story for The Atlantic titled "The Case for Reparations." This is the concept of paying damages for past wrongs. In this case, paying African Americans to compensate for the damage done, really the wealth stolen by slavery, Jim Crow laws, racist housing policies, and so forth. The Atlantic rolled this magazine article out like it was a blockbuster movie, which really impressed me, to be honest. And it impressed Coates, too. I met up with him at the magazine's offices in New York earlier this week. Check out what he told me. I was amazed by the way The Atlantic rolled this article out. How did that start?
I would love to say that it was totally intentional. It was not totally intentional. It's very interesting how things work today. We had the piece done. We had it, boxed up, and everybody was very happy, very pleased, and very proud of it. And I was talking to James Bennett, who's editor, now co-president of The Atlantic, and I suggested, hey, can we just tweet the cover out, maybe get a little hype, not say anything else? And he said, no, you know what? We've been experimenting with doing these trailers for the entire issue. Movie trailers, yeah, for the entire issue. And we've done a few. He said, what if we did one for just this story, just this story? And I said, okay, well, that sounds interesting. And I saw it probably about 2 days before it was tweeted out. It blew me away.
Maybe this is what publishers have to do now in this digital age.
Yes. But if I may be a little bit arrogant, I think it really, really matters that you have a great story behind it. I think, if you got the product, you can do all the hyping.
Getting back to the idea of a movie, you got to have character development.
That's
you
right.
got to have a payoff. All of those things we associate with movies.
That's right. You got to have something to advertise. And beyond whatever work I put into it, The Atlantic put quite a bit of resources behind that piece and making sure to tell it, with all the thickness that it deserves.
And The Atlantic set a single-day traffic record with the article the day it went online. It's been read days and days and days since. What has been the reaction that you've heard? Have you succeeded in kicking off a debate about this topic?
I think so. I don't know where that goes, but yeah, I would say so. It has been shocking.
Donald Sterling's been in the news for his racist rant that was on audio, but he was accused of housing discrimination for years before, and that didn't get nearly as much press attention.
No. And that, again, that's a challenge of storytelling because it's nowhere near as, sexy as, say, some, young girl, catching you, on audio tape and then releasing it to the world. People like that. There's something sexy about that. But housing really gets at the core of our very identity as Americans, our sense of what it means to be a citizenship, the idea that I have purchased a piece of the country, and for people to see, I think, a whole class of people cut out of that, really people can get the basic injustice of that, I think.
What is your overall impression of the way race is usually covered in the media? Because this article is in a league of its own. We don't see 16,000 words oftentimes dedicated to an issue like this.
Well, I think, race is covered in the way that we cover, most things in the media, and that is that there's a bias towards spectacle. And so, as like when Donald Sterling says something, that means something. When Clive Bundy, this spectacle, says something, that means something. And this presents, great difficulty for those of us who are concerned about the force of racism in American life, because much of it isn't spectacle.
Your character's experience is not the stuff of headlines.
No, not at all, not at all. And even, the stuff, we talk about race that does get attention. For instance, we see that old footage of Bull Connor, we see kids being hit by the high-pressure water hose. That sort of imagery is not evoked with the sort of things I was talking about in that story.
Right, what you're talking about is in color, not in black and white.
That's right. That's very, very true. But I think that, is the challenge of any storyteller. You have to find some way to, bring that to life and, get across to people what's actually happening.
You argued in a recent blog post that Sterling, that Bundy, these are examples that make people feel good because they can easily condemn them and then ignore the systemic issues.
Yeah. No, it's a lot harder, when you get to things that are at the core of us. And again, I feel like that's really a storytelling challenge, to get people to look away from the spectacle, to get people to look away from the loud, sort of histrionics and pyrotechnics, and look at the really, really quiet systemic things, that, damage many people's lives in this country.
You've been out promoting the article, talking about the article for days now. I saw you at an event that BuzzFeed had the other day, and you talked about political reporting and how they miss the racial context of of the country when they write about politics. Tell me what you wish political reporters would do differently.
Well, I think part of this is, the racial context suffers from a bigger problem, and that is, and this has been one of my great frustrations for a long time, the ahistorical nature of political punditry and political analysts. I just think that we could understand our history better, and we could integrate that into our actual storytelling and into our coverage.